arrived obscenely early. It was important to get there early to get a good seat, and getting a good seat was crucial because this was the best toddler sing-along in town. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to say words like best toddler sing-along in town, but motherhood changed me in all sorts of unexpected ways. I never pictured myself as a stay-at-home mother, for example, but in Brooklyn, New York, where we lived, the cost of childcare was so exorbitant, it would have taken my entire paycheck. And although I loved my job as a public school teacher, I couldn't imagine working just to work, especially when I had this beautiful new human at home. And so I became a stay-at-home mom, like almost all of my friends, but unlike them, I was really bad at it. I was lonely and bored and resentful, and I would count down the days until Wednesday because Wednesday was the sing-along at the Oak and the Iris. I loved the Oak and the Iris. I loved its overpriced lattes and organic salads. I loved being out in civilization and seeing adults, and I loved that damn sing-along. Miss Katie, she led the sing-along. She was this lovely 20-something with a guitar and a beautiful voice. She intermingled songs like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star with hits by Neil Young and the Beatles. We parents would form this barricade of chairs around Miss Katie so that our toddlers could dance adorably contained while we drank our coffee while it was hot. Okay, in theory, that's how it was supposed to work out, but things never worked out for me the way they did for other parents. My daughter, Stella, was extraordinary and totally different from any other baby I'd ever met. She didn't sleep for 16 months. What I mean by that is, if she did happen to doze off, she might stay asleep for up to an hour and a half at a time, but when she woke, she didn't want to eat, she didn't want a diaper change, she didn't want to snuggle, she wanted intense human interaction with me, specifically. And this carried through during the day. She didn't want to nap, she didn't want to play by herself or with other babies, she wanted me to chase after her and interact with her. And so our routine at the Oak and the Iris was that she would dance by my side for approximately 5 minutes, and then she would break through that barricade of chairs inexplicably to go to the front of the Oak and the Iris where they had this display case of snacks. She was obsessed with pirate's booty, which, as you know, is basically organic Cheetos. And so I would, on my strong days, I would chase after her and I would just refuse to buy her any of those. But on my weekdays, I would chase after her and buy her as many bags as it took to keep her from screaming and crying. But on this day, I just couldn't chase after her anymore. I couldn't do it. I just wanted to drink my damn coffee. And I figured, you know, whatever mess she makes, I'll pay for it. I'll clean it up. But before I could even take a sip, I heard the front door open and close. I heard all these people go, I looked and Stella was on the other side of the glass, toddling toward a busy road in Brooklyn. Okay, so I need to pause here and tell you about another significant change motherhood made in me. From the time I peed on a stick and saw 2 lines, I was consumed with terror at the thought of losing my child. During my pregnancy, I went to the ER no fewer than 3 times, convinced that I was miscarrying. I called my midwife so often, they began to beg me to just get in a bathtub and drink a glass of wine to calm down. And then when she was born, it only got 10 times worse because, you know, when she would actually sleep, I was convinced she would die of SIDS. So I didn't sleep when she wasn't sleeping, and I didn't sleep when she was sleeping. I didn't sleep. My husband would take her on these half-hour walks to give me a break, but the second he left, I couldn't get this picture out of my mind of him stepping in front of a truck and getting them both killed. We had this weird neighbor, which is pretty common in New York, and with no evidence at all, I convinced myself that he was cooking meth that would blow up the whole building. And that he was a serial killer. So I didn't get a break from my kid. I didn't get a break from my mind. And the one time I sat back and relaxed, my kid was running out into traffic. I found, to my great surprise, that I was able to leap over those chairs in a single bound. And by the time I got to the door, this couple had kind of ushered Stella back in, and I was just overcome with gratitude. But then it was replaced with rage. And before I could stop myself, I heard myself scream in front of everyone at the Oak and the Iris. Why me? Why me? Look at you people. You are just sitting there drinking your coffee while your kids play. I bet you they sleep at night, don't they? I never get a break. Miss Katie Rudy was valiantly trying to play the wheels on the bus, but everyone was staring at me. My friend Anne approached. Anne, who dropped all of her baby weight in 3 months, and who was an amazing stay-at-home mom, and who baked her own bread and fermented her own vegetables and sewed clothes for her daughter. And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I am not okay. I guess this makes me a monster, but I miss going to work every day. I miss seeing other adults. I need a break from this. I don't think we were all cut out for this motherhood crap." And she said, "Okay." I packed up Stella and I took her home, and I was so mad at myself because nobody at the Oak and the Iris knew about the worst change that motherhood had made in me. They didn't know about the mountain of broken dishes back home, or the door slammed so hard that the hinges broke, or the words screamed in my husband's face I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But now they did. What I didn't know then, and what I do know now, is that you don't have to blindly accept every change motherhood tries to make in you. It's one thing to go from being a relatively cool person to the kind of person who gets excited about a toddler sing-along. It's another thing entirely to be filled with rage on a daily basis, or to be so worried about your loved ones you can't sleep at night. I didn't have postpartum depression. I suffered from its lesser known and way more obnoxious cousins, postpartum rage and anxiety. But as it turns out, with years and years and years of therapy and going back to a job that I love and getting as much sleep as anybody will allow me to, I was able to force some pretty positive changes upon myself. And as it turns out, I'm not half bad at the whole motherhood thing.
Foundation, a special bond of creation.